just about a month ago, we stopped at section 17, or chapter 17 of the Diamond Sutra. That's on page 17. And there's still the last two paragraphs that we haven't explained, which is on page 19. So hopefully we will finish it today on the whole chapter 17, if we finish these last two paragraphs. Subhuti, in like manner, if a bodhisattva says, I should lead uncountable living beings to put a stop to reincarnation and escape from suffering, he cannot be called a bodhisattva. Why? Because there is really no Dharma called the bodhisattva stage. Therefore, the Buddha says, of all Dharmas, there is not a single one which possesses an ego, a personality, a being, and a life. So we always get back to that fourfold notion of ego, personality, being, and life. In the whole sutra, we always go back to that. So what's the meaning of this fallacious fourfold notion of ego, personality, being, and life? What is this ego, personality, being, and life? There's a fourfold notion, conception, always in our mind, dominating us. There's four elements, fourfold notion. What is this ego? We really have to review it occasionally so that we understand fully what it means. What is this ego? This ego is I, the subject, the giver. The five skandhas. What does this ego make up of? The body and the mind. Our ego or self is made up of the body and the mind. So the body and the mind, in other words, in the terminology of the Buddha's teaching, the five skandhas, the five aggregates, you know all the five aggregates: matter, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness. If you have cultivated bad causes, bad effects will come out. That's what we call karma. What you're experiencing now, you blame God, you blame your dad, your mom, you blame the whole world, but you don't blame yourself. Nobody else. You yourself is responsible for all this perception, conception, volitions, and consciousness. So are you going to be careful, mindful of what you're doing? Or you don't care? You keep on creating karma. You keep on reincarnating. You keep on suffering. Nobody makes you suffer. You yourself push yourself to the way of suffering. All sentient beings attach to the notion of ego and the five skandhas. They think that this is me. My body is me. This is what I think. All this ego is grounded in your consciousness. And you're living in that prison. We are all living in that prison and we don't know about it. We feel comfortable in it. That's our comfort zone, we call it. It's not comforting anymore if you're creating bad karma. Ego, that gets us into trouble. But people don't know. Most people, they don't know. I have the right. I can do this, I can do that. You don't infringe on my right. You're my enemies. Ego. Because of this ego, problems after problems come out. So we always say, what is purification? Purification is to gear to change yourself from the self-centered life to the divinity-centered life. Everything is self-centered. Can we change the self-centered lifestyle or life to the divinity-centered life? What is this divinity? Divinity is unconditional. Divinity is purity. Divinity is not tainted. It's not polluted. It's one pure, no discrimination, no conceptualization. It's pure compassion. It's ego-free. Can we be ego-free? We're working towards it. So ego, that's the problem. Don't we have to identify the problem first, the cause of the problem? Or we just blame the problem? When the problem comes up, we just cry, we just react with vehement behavior, with whatever behavior you come up with. You act with acute behavior, not with mindfulness, not with this righteous mindfulness. The Buddha told us, you have to step back and look at your life. Look at your ego. Let your ego wall crumble down. When all the walls are gone, that's the whole horizon. Unrestricted vision. Only through the development of this sainthood can only be achieved by experiences, walking through the suffering, realizing it, solving the problems. Only when the soul has to go through all this and change yourself, can you tread the path of the stages of the saints. So we got to pinpoint this ego. But after we finish this, we go out to the world again, that egoistic feeling still dominates us. It can't get away. Because this has been so strong. So that's ego, the fourfold fallacious conceptualization in our mind that pushes us to reincarnations, that pushes us to suffering, that pushes us to this world, this Saha world, S-A-H-A, Saha world, in the Buddhist terminology. What does Saha world means? Saha is a Sanskrit word. It means endurance of suffering. This world is dominated by suffering, but it seems that we endure it and we don't feel it. Only the wise know, we got to get away from here. This is a prison. This is a prison house. But we are very comfortable in it until the time comes when we have to face death. And even at the juncture of death, we don't want to go away. We still breathe that last breath. We don't want to leave. Have you ever been to the hospitals to see people breathing the last breath? They don't want to leave. There's so many things in their mind. Their families, their house, their bank accounts, their possessions. There's so many unfinished businesses that they have to do. They don't want to go away. They don't want to get away from prison. They want to stay. So that's ego. And what is personality? Ego is this I. What is this personality? The fourfold: ego, personality, beings, and life. Fourfold. Always have to remember, the sutra concentrates on telling you this you should understand. What's personality? Ego is I. Personality is you, them, they. The ego is the giver. The personality is the object, the recipients. The opposite of I. The counterparts that you have been interacting with. You consider yourself having an ego and living in that ego. Every others think and react in the same way too. Living in their ego, which they erroneously consider as their identities. They protect their ego, you protect your own ego. and she or he protects his or her ego. Problem comes with ego reinforcements, with egos and egos interaction. That's why we fight. That's why we quarrel. That's why we fight at home. We fight on the job. We argue. That's why we have international wars. What's beings? Because you attach to I, the subject, and them, the objects, so comes the rising of subject and object, the giver and the recipient. The subject and objects account for all things. We attach not only to people, we attach to all things. Beings, all things. We attach to fame, reputation, wealth, money. So when we explain ego, personality, and beings, ego, personality, and beings is spatial. Space is regarding space. You and I and all things is space. But the world is not just space. The world is also of time. The world is made up of nothing but elements of space and time. What others? If we can conceptualize it and generalize it, there's nothing but space and time. So this the fourth concept of life is regarding time. Because you attach to ego, person, and beings, you would cling to the false notion of continuation of life. We think everything is permanent. We never think things are impermanent. We don't know that things are fleeting. We think that we're always attached because we think that we can hold on as permanently as possible. You think you can hold on to your job until one day you get fired. You think you can hold on to your wife until one day you got a divorce. We always think that it continues forever and ever. Don't we know that this is a fallacious concept? Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent. It's impermanent. It's transient. But what's the point of knowing impermanence? What's the point of knowing it? I know. A kid knows. We're not gonna live for thousands of years. We already know. But what's the point? The point is, don't attach. You live day by day, but don't attach to it. Let go. Don't attach to your past. It's already gone. Don't worry about the future. It hasn't come yet. Don't worry. Don't have anxieties. Don't be hung up with anxieties. You hung up with anxieties, will get depression. So, don't attach to continuation. It does not mean that you become very pessimistic about life. You still actively pursue your life, but you know everything is fleeting. So if you know everything is fleeting and impermanent, how does that help you? That help you to know that you've got to get out from this prison, this life prison. It's not permanent. How do you get out from it? You have to realize your Bodhi nature. Get out from reincarnation. Get out from life and death. Get out from this impermanence fallacy. And achieve that eternity, that divinity, that eternity. Because you don't want impermanence, do you? Nobody wants impermanence. You want permanence, you want eternity. You have to work at it. You got to get out from the prison, the ego prison. The walls have to crumble down before you can vision ahead. So there's time. There's a Chinese saying, and I have to say it in Chinese before I can translate it. 天地者 万物之逆旅，光阴劫百代之过客. That means space. What is space? Space is a passage of a journey. It's only a journey. It's a passage of a journey. Space, location, is just a passage of a journey. Time is the transience of a travel. We're just a traveler. We're just a traveler. You don't think we are a traveler? We never stay. Only the hosts stay. Is there any host in here who will permanently stay? No exception. Every one of us is a traveler. We travel. We're not a host. Is there any host? There's no host. You think the Buddha is the host? The Buddha is away from time and space. No more guest, no more host for him. It's beyond all that. Guest and host only exist in the ego prison. So, did I say I'm going to finish this today? So, let's carry on. Next paragraph. Subhuti, if a Bodhisattva says, I should adorn Buddha lands, he cannot be called a Bodhisattva. Why? Because when the Tathagata speaks of such adornment, it is not, but it's expediently called adornment. What's the meaning of adornment? Adorning the Buddha land. Here, adorning, that means glorifying, beautifying the Buddha land. When a Bodhisattva glorifies the Buddha land, that means he is practicing the Buddha's teaching. He's practicing Prajna Paramita, the 6 Prajna Paramita. The more he practices, the more he adorning the land, glorifying the land. What is the 6 Paramitas? Charity, practicing endurances, morality, charity, morality, endurance, meditation, and what else? Diligence, hard working, and lastly, wisdom, development of a wisdom. So in other words, it's benefiting others and benefiting himself. So a Bodhisattva is always rendering compassion to all sentient beings. That's how he or she, the Bodhisattva, adorn the Buddha lands, beautifying it and glorifying it. But it says here, if a Bodhisattva says, I shall adorn Buddha lands, he cannot be called Bodhisattva. He can only be called a beginning Bodhisattva. Because when the Tathagata speaks of such adornment, it is expediently called adornment. Because there's no adornment. If you think of adornment, you're only thinking of form. If you are a real Bodhisattva, you will diligently practice Prajna Paramita. And you will realize that there is really no Dharma called a Bodhisattva. Because how can there be anything to glorify it? How can we attach to form? We glorified it, and so good is the glorification, but we don't attach to the glorification. In other words, form is no different than emptiness, and emptiness is no different from form. In emptiness, there is no form. How can there be any glorification? How can there be any adornment? Apart from causality, nothing exists. How can adornment exist? But we need to glorify it, but we don't attach to the glorification. That's how we do something, and after we have done it, let it be done, and we don't attach to it. You have built a temple, then you say, oh, I built this beautiful temple. I've become famous. I enlighten a lot of people. I'm great. You adorn the land, but you're attached to it. In other words, you still have that ego. Everything exists, but only exists on causality and has no reality of its own. So how can you say you adorn the Buddha land? Form is no different than emptiness. Adornment is empty, is void. There is adornment. That is charity, endurance, wisdom, meditation, and diligence. But all these exist on causality, causes and effect only, conglomeration of causes and effect. When the time comes, it's finished. Don't attach to it anymore. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no taste, no body or mind. No form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no object of mind. No realm of the eyes, up to no realm of consciousness. No old age, no death, no ignorance, no extinction. There's nothing to be obtained. If there's something to be obtained, it is attachment to form. So how can, only for the beginners, we're adorning the Buddha land. After the Buddha land is adorned, you don't attach it to it anymore. It's adorned, so great, and you move on. It's just like when you build a hospital, you save millions of people, you make yourself the CEO of the hospital and you glorify yourself in the newspapers. I am the CEO, I'm the founder, I'm the pioneer of this hospital. You glorify not just the land, but your own ego. But there could be another person who built this hospital, who have done all these great deeds, and he just quietly and slowly walk away, and not other people to continue this accomplishment. There's no attachment because he let go. He let go of this attachment to fame, to reputation, to status, to authority. Subhuti, if a bodhisattva is thoroughly versed in the doctrine of unreality of ego and of things, the Tathagata can call him a true bodhisattva. If a bodhisattva, after he has adorned the Buddha land, he does not attach to it because he knows that emptiness is, form is no other than emptiness, and emptiness is no other than form. He does not attach. He does not attach to the past, the present, and the future, not to say material. Then he can be truly called bodhisattva. Further step, going further and further. It's in learning the Buddha's teaching, you go step by step by step. You're getting rid of all your attachments until you become bare and purified. Not a trace, not a thought. Like the sky, like the sky without clouds. Just one blue, one purity blue, nothing else. A cloudless, pure blue sky, shining with enlightenment. No pollution. So that's chapter 17. That's chapter 17. And next time we will begin with 18. But let's get back to, remember the first or the second, or at the beginning, what instigate the Subhuti to ask all these questions. Subhuti asked the Buddha in the first chapter, virtuous men and women developing the Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi, how should their mind abide? How should they control their thoughts? In other words, virtuous men and women developing Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi. What is Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi? The Bodhi mind, the enlightened mind. The Nirvana, the fully enlightened supreme mind. Virtuous men and women, if they're looking to develop that way, developing Anuttara Samya Sambuddhi, how should their minds abide? How should they train their mind? And in the process of training it, if they have thoughts going astray, how do they control their mind? So the Diamond Sutra is all about the mind, all about the thought. So by now, beginners, you should think, what is Buddhism all about? Is it about prostration, worshipping an idol, kneeling down and getting blessings? No, it's about the study of your own mind. The study of you, yourself. What happened to you? If you, as an entity, what happened to you as an entity? Why do you have to go through all these experiences in life, good or bad? Sometimes malicious, sometimes benevolence, sometimes suffering, sometimes happiness. Why do I have to go through all this? The Diamond Sutra tells us this, tells us the problems, and tell us ways to tackle them, to resolve them.